Hello everyone, this presentation is about workout nutrition. So we're looking at what you would be doing before, during, and after workout to have the most effective exercise program. It's going to benefit you both obviously while you're exercising and afterwards. So it's a common thing I'm asked, like, what do you do before, especially after? What should I be eating after workout? Because people don't think about planning ahead when it comes to exercise. So sometimes you get involved in something and you don't think to plan ahead, and then you kind of run into some problems. So this program here is more about workout nutrition, meaning what you're doing before you go to the gym or start exercising at home, what you should be drinking, should not going to be eating things while you're exercising, and then what you should be eating and or drinking after you work out. And there's a lot of misinformation out there about this stuff, so I wanted to clarify this in this presentation. So again, attention all active members, for credits towards LMHF Wellness Program Part 2, you must watch the video in its entirety and comment on each video with your name. Once confirmed LMHF, once confirmed by LMHF, your comments and name will promptly be removed. So make sure you do that to get credit for watching this video. So planning. Again, let's look at planning ahead. Now, we'll talk about timing and things like that of things, but first of all, we're going to look at planning and why you would be doing this. So number one, preparation is key when it comes to prepping for a workout. You can't just kind of fall into it. Obviously, you're going to have your exercise clothing hopefully kind of set aside and used just for the exercise bout. So you want to plan ahead, obviously making sure you have water, which is the number one thing that you need for workouts, and we'll talk about how much and the way you want to kind of set that up. But what if you don't? What if you don't plan this? What if you just jump in? So a lot of people unfortunately do this. They go out and they exercise and they end up getting dizzy or sick or not want to continue, and maybe their stomach is growling. So there's a lot of things you need to plan for in advance. So number one, you'd have delayed recovery. Right? If you work out really hard and you didn't drink enough beforehand or during, you're going to be dehydrated because you're going to be sweating. And that sweat is going to remove electrolytes from your body. It's obviously going to remove water from your body, and it's going to slow things down. You maybe get a brain fog as well. It's increasing the stress on your body. Your kidneys especially, if you're not having enough water, they can't process the waste products out of your body. Breakdown of your body. So when you exercise, especially post-workout, you need to start rebuilding it because you're actually creating stress on the body, you're creating damage and what's called microtrauma. So the more you can plan these things out, the better you're going to recover for the next day or the next workout. Okay, so timing. Do you work out in the morning, afternoon, evening? You have to plan these things out on how you're doing them, because if you get up early in the morning and you want to work out early in the morning, you can't eat a big meal and then just jump into workout, or eat any substantial meal and jump into your workout. So we're looking at pre-workout, what you'd be doing before you start. Obviously during your workout or active workout, and then obviously after, post-workout. And those are critical points in your exercise program. There's three significant factors that go into this, and we're going to talk about how to properly time all this. So what we're looking at is fuel for recovery. Okay, so number one, we need to build up fuel. You have eaten and drank something, maybe it's the day before if you work out early in the morning, but you have something in your body as energy or fuel to fuel your workouts. Then once you use that fuel, you need to replenish that fuel to start repairing your body. Obviously, during that workout, you're burning the fuel off, and you need to make sure your body's able to stabilize and balance that and keep it up for the entire workout. Now, the intensity of your workout can vary quite a bit in terms of what you do for it. Like if you're going to go out and walk, several miles or a mile, you don't need a ton of this stuff. That's more activity. This is more specific to exercise. If you're going to be lifting weights or doing more higher intensity work, this is the kind of stuff you need to be doing. But if you go out for a walk, even if it's on your lunch break or just get outside, you definitely always need to have water either with you, have drank it before, or have obviously plenty of it afterwards as well. So those are the keys to look at when it comes to activity versus exercise. Exercise, you really need to make sure you're getting that nutrition at those specific times. Whereas if you're doing activity like a walk or a light bike ride, always have water with you, and probably bring a little snack, whether it's a nutrition bar or anything like that, just in case your blood sugar starts to drop. Always be prepared in case anything like that happens. So this fuel and recovery is really based on energy, right, in terms of calories. Calories burned versus calories taken in, whether you've eaten them or drank them. So number one, exercise is creating breakdown in your body. You're creating stress, or you're creating a stimulus for change in your body when you're exercising. When you're doing an activity like walking or light biking, that's good to keep things going, but you're not creating breakdowns where your body's going to be changing because of that. It's more maintenance, which we obviously require. So when we break things down, it's known as a catabolic response in our body. We're breaking things down. Now the anabolic response is where we go to build them back up. So you have to break them down for them to build back up. And every time you build them back up, you build a little bit extra. So your body's response to a breakdown is to repair that damage, but also give a little more or repair a little bit more in case that happens again. So it kind of overcompensates a bit. And that's what exercise really stimulates, is moving you forward instead of just kind of maintaining. So the key is that anabolic response or rebuilding process is very important. And that's the key to these three steps. Is really the third step, which is the rebuilding process of what's been damaged so you can repair that afterwards. And we'll talk about that in a bit more detail as we go along. So this is the stimulus versus stimulus for change. So it's applying that stress or stimulus to your body to make it have to adapt and change. Our bodies are going to adapt to this change, and then we're going to have this response of a little bit extra. So next time, maybe we wouldn't have as much damage. And that's why when you exercise, you got to step it up each time, because your body's trying to repair one step ahead of you. So you have to keep advancing to challenge your body. So we'll look at before workout. Are you working out in the morning, afternoon, or evening? I typically tell people the best time to work out is in the morning before you get up and go to work, because this way it's done and out of the way. If you're doing that, you're typically not going to be eating a meal before you exercise, because your body needs a substantial amount of time to really digest something prior to exercise. So I would suggest, obviously, number one, as soon as you get up, have some water. Okay, so hydrate yourself before you do anything. Especially now in the winter time, actually we have a lot more dehydration because there's less humidity in the air, number one. Number two, you'll use a lot of forced air heat. So in the morning, your nasal passage and your mouth is dry. So making sure you're drinking in the morning before you start exercising is important, especially if you're coughing and kicking out all this dust from the night. Hydrate yourself before you start. If you're diabetic or you have blood sugar problems, hypoglycemic, something like that, you might want to add a little bit something to that water. So I would suggest adding maybe a little bit of juice to water down, give it some flavor, but it gives you a little bit of carbohydrates, which will help kind of push you through and keep your mental focus there as well. So that would be the thing I would start with in the morning. If you're exercising in the afternoon, you've probably already had breakfast, maybe lunch. Some people don't eat breakfast, they just eat lunch. But making sure you have enough time in between your meal and your exercise, because you don't want to exercise on a full stomach. And you don't want to exercise on a stomach where you've drank so much water you feel it sloshing around your stomach. So eating or drinking too much prior to workout is not good, because your body, when you go to digest things, it forces a lot of its energy and especially blood flow to your organs to digest the food. So when you're trying to exercise and force that energy out to your muscles, it doesn't work. So you have to make sure that you've pre-digested, or the meal you've had is smaller and it's not heavy on your stomach and it's not going to weigh you down, per se. So an evening type workout, same thing, making sure you have enough time in between your meal and your exercise. Now, one thing I would not recommend that actually a lot of people do is maybe they didn't eat for 6 hours before they exercised. So they're hungry to start with, and now they're going to exercise. So there's nothing in their stomach weighing them down, but they're not going to have the energy to kind of spark that fire for the exercise. So you have to eat something. I typically tell people 2 hours prior to exercise, eat something. I've had a lot of clients over the years that they came in for their first workout and they didn't eat much at all or had nothing. And a lot of times what happens is that workout ends early, even if it's a very light workout, because their blood sugar drops, they feel dizzy, blood pressure drops, and they have to sit. So you really have to prepare for that and have something. Many people skip long chunks of their day without eating. So anything more than really 4 to 6 hours is a long stretch of time. You're actually fasting at that point. So making sure you have something to be ready for what you're going to be doing, because your brain really relies on those carbohydrates, especially in your bloodstream, your glucose levels, to be up to the point where that it can function. Once your brain starts realizing it's losing its energy supply, it starts shutting down systems in your body and making you not feel well. It's not going to kill you, but it's going to make you not want to exercise. You're not going to feel well to the point where you want to continue. So your brain is kind of a glutton for glucose because that's what it runs on. Your liver stores some of that glucose in response to feeding your brain a little bit here, a little bit there. But once your muscles start really working, they start using the glucose that's stored inside them, but they also start sucking up your blood sugar as well. So start taking it from your bloodstream, which is your brain's supply of fuel. So it does not like that. So I would suggest, especially if you're hypoglycemic or anything like that, or haven't eaten beforehand, while you're exercising, you also want to be drinking water with some type of carbohydrate in it. Again, I prefer using something that's more natural, like a juice or something like that. Water it down and drink that. Don't drink full juice because that's going to be heavy on your stomach, heavy sugar, right? So water it down, give it a little bit of flavor. Also, research shows that the more you flavor something or color something, like water, the more you're going to consume. Most people don't drink enough. And you don't want to ever guzzle anything because then you'll be running to the bathroom quick. You actually want to be sipping throughout the workout or throughout the day, really. So making sure that you're getting what you need when your body needs it. So there's a lot of convenient ready-made shakes and things like that, nutrition shakes, protein shakes you can use as well. If you don't have time to plan ahead, you can just buy those, drink those, and those will give you the nutrients you really need to do that. Making sure I try to avoid all types of artificial sweeteners and additives, and unfortunately a lot of those companies use that to flavor these things and try to reduce calories, but just be aware of what you're taking in. So again, I talked about digestion slowing down as you exercise because your body's energy is focused on digestion, and then all of a sudden you start exercising. Now it has to do two things at once, so it shuts down digestion, slows that down while you're exercising. So that's an important thing to look at, is you don't want to exercise on a full stomach and you don't want to exercise on a bloated stomach where you've drank all this water and it's kind of sloshing around. So don't drink too much during your workouts as well. Kind of sip it, your mouth gets dry, sip it as you go along. You're going to consume more of your fluids after your workout, which is going to replenish your sweat. So you're sweating a lot, and the reason why you're sweating is because your body's heating up. Muscles, if you didn't sweat, you could fry an egg on your skin. That's how much they heat up because of the friction between the muscle fibers. So because of that heat, we have to sweat. And when we sweat, we remove some of that heat. But we're also removing electrolytes. Electrolytes are very important for energy conduction in our body. So when you start sweating off salts and things like that, electrolytes, you're actually reducing the amount of connection or ability of our muscles to work. So that's why afterwards you need to replenish those electrolytes. And we'll talk about sports drinks and whatnot as well. So again, what to drink during a workout, maintaining your blood sugar is important. Watered down juice is the best, and I'm not talking like half and half. I'm talking like a quarter or less. Just a little splash, give it some flavor. That's enough to keep you going. So if you get nauseous while you exercise, that would be something to look at with your blood sugar and things like that. A lot of times when people first start exercising, they get nauseous early on if they stress their body out too much. Their brain basically says, let's not do this. So it gives you feelings of nausea and things like that. There's other reasons for that, but for the most part, it's all about planning and working at the intensity level that your body can handle. If you go from 0 to 100, your body is not going to like that. Your brain especially is going to shut that down pretty quick. So the main thing is, again, I talked about your glucose levels, your blood sugar is mainly for your brain. That starts depleting and your body or your brain will shut down that activity by making you feel nauseous or lower your blood sugar. I mean, some people will pass out if their blood sugar drops too low or their blood pressure changes too quickly. So really take it at your own level. Don't go crazy from 0 to 100. Even if you had done that stuff when you're younger, it's all about a gradual step process to get back to where you were and then keep advancing from there. So again, I talked about electrolytes. Cramping from dehydration is a big thing. Also, if you have a potassium deficiency, a lot of people say, have a banana, which is high in potassium, which will increase those levels. You get a lot of cramping. Those things do help, but your doctor can test you for deficiencies and that kind of stuff as well. All right, so sports drinks are a big thing these days. Actually, any type of bottled drinks are huge business. And there's a lot of time and money spent trying to convince you that if you're active, you need to be drinking sports drinks. Gatorade, Powerade, whatever it is. A lot of people drink those things when they're not exercising, when they're not doing anything. And really, that's their purpose, is to supply you with electrolytes, some carbohydrates, and obviously water for hydration while you're doing something active. But people drink these things when they go to lunch all the time and they're not doing anything active. So number one, again, avoiding artificial sweeteners is very important to me, but also avoiding corn syrup and all these additives that you really don't want in your body. There's also, if you look at Gatorade and things like that, if you look at them on the shelf or in the cooler, the entire bottle is the same color. The liquid inside is the same color. That's because they use certain chemicals to keep it in solution. Chemicals you really don't want to have. So I always advise people to try to do things yourself. So I'm going to talk here about a way you can actually produce your own stuff without the added junk in it. Again, any of these Gatorade Zeros, anything has no calories in it, to me doesn't really make sense. The only thing without calories that makes sense is water. There's no nutritional value, but it is a macronutrient you need in larger quantities in order to maintain and survive. So the big thing to try to avoid is a lot of dyes and additives. So I've put together some things. I've seen many different recipes online on how to make your own sports drinks that don't have all those added things in them, especially MSG and all these flavor enhancers. And the color itself is what makes you actually drink more. So it's the flavor, the coloring, because it looks like food. It's not water. People don't drink a lot of water because there's no taste to it and there's no color in it, and it's something that sometimes people just don't enjoy because there's no benefit. There's no taste to it, I would say. So that's one thing to look at when it comes to these things. So one thing to look at as well, which I mentioned here, is that tap water is tested far more than bottled water. Talking about contaminants and things like that. So bottled water is actually more expensive than gasoline. If you look at it, a gallon of gas right now is $2 something. And a bottle of water, you can get a little tiny bottle of water for $2. I mean, sometimes outrageous amounts based on where you are. But it's actually more expensive than gasoline. So be aware of that. And if you have tap water in the average area, I mean, obviously filter it if you want to take out some of the taste of it. If a lot of the pipes or whatnot, you live in an old house, that can affect the taste. But most, residential water is fine. You don't need to have any crazy artesian bottled water. So that I would try to save on those kind of things. So do-it-yourself sports drink. Number one, obviously you're going to start with water. Put some type of juice in it, something you like. Again, not too much. Honey is a great sweetener because it's natural. Make sure honey, typically you're going to have to shake it up quite a bit if it's natural honey to get it in solution. And then you want to use a little pinch of sea salt. Like you can use coarse or you can use fine, whatever it is, it's going to dilute in the water itself. A little pinch of it. Pink Himalayan sea salt is great. It's got a lot of trace minerals in it as well, but just a little pinch. Not that it's going to be like drinking salt water, but you get a little bit of salt flavor in it, and that's going to help when you start sweating because the electrolytes you're going to sweat out are going to be somewhat replaced by that little pinch of salt. But it is super cheap. Again, you'll make way more with that. Obviously, bottled sports drinks and teas and all that stuff. I mean, the markup on that stuff is outrageous. It's basically just water with some type of flavor, or sugar, or artificial chemical in it. So save your money. One other thing, like I said about color, is there's tons of water bottles that are colored. That actually will make you drink more. If there's a color to that bottle, blue, red, green, whatever it is, that stimulates your body's response like a fruit. So that actually makes you drink more and hydrate more, which is very important. Okay, so this is the biggest point. This is afterwards. After you're done, number one, water is going to be lost, right? You're going to have sweat. Some of that water is going to be outside your body. You're going to sweat it off to dissipate heat. When I work with the Sabres and whatnot, what they would actually do is after practice or after games, they would weigh themselves before and after and then base how much water they had to drink on that amount lost. So obviously the average person's not doing that, but it's something to look at in terms of if you want to keep performing at a high level, you need to replace what you've lost and maybe even a little bit more. So those are keys that we don't really think about in everyday life, is that putting back in what was taken out. So the main thing afterwards is to make sure you're giving your body a pool of carbohydrates and amino acids. Amino acids being proteins. Because the proteins are really going to be what's going to be rebuilding that damage to the cells. Carbohydrates are going to replenish your energy stores for your brain in terms of glucose, but also glycogen, which is a stored form of sugar in your muscles. That's the time where your muscles are going to suck that back in and fill back up. So immediately post-exercise, where you want to have protein and carbohydrates. You do not want to have fats, even if they're healthy fats, immediately post-workout, because they slow down digestion. You have about a 30 to 45 minute window where your body is ready to absorb and take in as much as it can to replenish these stores that have been used. So that time is very crucial to replenish these things. So don't miss out on that window of opportunity. A common thing right now, obviously, are protein shakes. You'll see this everywhere. I mean, pretty much every corner store has protein bars, protein shakes, all different types of things. The main thing to look at with all those products is most of them are whey-based. Now, whey, I've had many people ask me different questions about this, if it's a drug or anabolic. All whey is if you take milk and you split it up into two main proteins that it has. You have casein and you have whey. Casein would be like cottage cheese, and whey is the powder that they use in all these drinks. Now you can also use just milk. Milk is both of those together. If you use chocolate milk, strawberry milk, whatever it is, the flavoring is going to be your carbohydrate. Okay, and there's some natural carbs in milk as well. And then the protein in the milk is going to be your protein. So you have your carbohydrates and your protein in one. So a protein shake is really just isolating one of those types of protein and then adding some type of flavor. Now, when it comes to another big thing right now are plant-based proteins. So those are incomplete proteins, which would be non-animal based, that when combined together form a complete protein. So anything that's animal based, whether it's a dairy product or eggs or anything like that, are going to be complete proteins up to meats and all that stuff. But when you look at plant-based, they're combining two plants, proteins, that complement each other to form a complete protein. So that's a big thing nowadays. So if you're trying to consume more of a plant-based diet, plant-based protein powders will go a long way to replenish, because you're not going to be using any animal-based, if you want to avoid using animal-based products. So that's a simple thing to do. There's also lots of protein bars you can use. Again, most of them are whey-based. The main thing you want to try to avoid would be artificial sweeteners. Now those are going to be like sucralose, aspartame. There's tons of different names for them. Those are the main two to look at. Splenda. Those are all artificial sweeteners. And usually if you see something that has low calorie or low carb in it, they've added that to increase the flavor. Otherwise it wouldn't taste like much. But there are tons of protein bars out there that are actually really good, don't contain a lot of added chemicals. Unfortunately, probably 80% or more of the market is chemical based, and a lot of things you probably don't really want to have. But you could also opt for a small meal. You could have yogurt, you could have eggs. There's lots of things you could have as actual food if you have the time to prepare them, because most of them have to be refrigerated if you're preparing a meal. Dairy products, refrigerated. So it really depends on what you're doing. If you want something simple, there's pre-made shakes. You just shake them up. They taste better cold typically. Shake them up, shoot them down, and you're good. Now that is your post-workout recovery. Now, if you're working out at home or at a gym, that's simple to do with those shakes. But the main thing is to focus on getting that in within that 30-minute time period, or 30 to 45 minutes. If you don't do that, if you don't eat post-workout, your blood sugar is going to be dropped, you're not going to have a lot of energy, you're going to be dehydrated, there's going to be a lot of negative effects, you're not going to feel well, and the next time you exercise, you're going to be depleted, because that time frame, that 30 minutes post-exercise, is when your body reloads everything up. If you miss that window closes, and that next meal is not going to do that. So very, very important. That's why I say this is the most important of the 3 steps. Now, rest and recovery is a big part of this, right? So you have your nutritional component, but you also have what's called DOMS, or delayed onset muscle soreness. That's the feeling of that microtrauma, that damage to the muscle. You're going to feel it in your nerves. You're going to feel pain, aches and pains. So active rest is something you want to be doing. So you're staying active, you're moving, but you're also fueling your body with what it needs to repair. So increasing your protein intake throughout your meals is also very important when you're trying to recover. But also resting. Your body is growing and repairing when you're resting. If you're not sleeping well, your body's not repairing. That's the main time your body is repairing itself. You release growth hormone at night. It uses energy from your body fat to fuel its recovery process and healing. So those are keys. And you don't want to ever exercise a muscle that's sore. If it's sore, it's not fully recovered yet, right? You want to stay active and moving, not sit around when your legs are real sore from doing squats. Go for a walk. Do some light biking. That helps you recover better. That pumps everything out, gets things moving again. Don't sit around when you're really sore. Keep it moving. Obviously, we're talking about exercise, not an injury. Talk with your doctor. I mean, there are plenty of people that injure themselves exercising. And if something is bothering you, don't push through it, because your body will try and compensate and then create other problems. You want to really listen to your body and address these concerns as you go along. So rest and recovery is crucial. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is just kind of the summation of all this. So think about when you're exercising, what you have to do before, during, and after to be effective. When you exercise, you create stress on your body, and you have to address that stress in many ways, before, during, and after that. So in order to stay healthy and or change the way your body looks and feels, you need to address these 3 components and make it work for your own body. So I hope you learned something, and I will see you next time. Thank you.